Hello again, class, to all of you. We continue with our discussion for this particular unit. We're going to look now at psychological and ethical egoism. So for this particular lesson, we're going to define and explain psychological and ethical egoism, as well as evaluate the different arguments under ethical egoism. Now we're going to focus on ethical egoism because this is more relevant and more connected sa ating course. Okay, so we begin with psychological egoism. Now, psychological egoism is the idea or the theory which is centered on the fact or the idea that human beings are naturally self-centered. So all, and we mean all, our actions are always already motivated by self-interest. And this concept points out that there is already an underlying reason for the action of human beings, and that is the ego or the self. Now, psychological egoism says that the ego or the self has its desires and interests, and the actions of human beings are geared towards the satisfaction of that interest or that desire. Okay, so the same is true with ethical subjectivism. This concept is also centered on the self. Now, this theory is a descriptive one, as it explains that there is a reason behind. However, it does not tell us the way that we should act. Okay? So, yun ang psychological egoism. Now, sabi natin kanina, all actions are motivated by self-interest, right? When we say all, we actually mean all. So it ranges from all actions which is centered on the satisfaction of a person. So all personal actions, from watching a movie or spending 24 hours of your time on social media, or going to school, to university and obtaining a degree, or taking a part-time job, doing a part-time job or a full-time job at that, and or doing or not doing the dishes at home. All of these are motivated by self-interest. And what is that self-interest? It is probably to satisfy your wants or your needs, or to relax yourself, or something like that, no? Not only personal actions or things that you do to satisfy your needs or your wants, but even the things that you do involving other people. So even helping other people is also accordingly motivated by self-interest. So whether or not the person admits it, one's actions are always ultimately motivated by self-serving desire, and the short-term benefits of an action is always considered. So take for instance, watching a movie at home. What is the short-term benefit of it? You feel relaxed for the time being, probably for the time that you watch the movie, or a few hours after that, or within the day when you watch that movie, or say, for example, spending time on social media. What is the short-term benefit of this? You feel, what? Do you feel accomplished watching the life of other people or what happens around the world? Okay, say how about taking a part-time job or doing a part-time job. Probably it's to meet your needs while you're going to school. If this time is challenging for you, it's way too difficult for you to meet yung mga needs mo, okay, that is also serving your self-interest for doing or not doing the dishes. What is the short-term benefit of it? Okay, you feel okay doing something, accomplishing something, or you feel okay or you feel happy not doing or not accomplishing something. And there. How about for helping other people? What is the benefit for you if you help other people? Perhaps you're able to project yourself as a good person for those who see you helping others. There. So, yon. Ito yung mga basic concepts ng psychological egoism. Now, when evaluated, psychological egoism can be deemed as a simple, a plausible, and irrefutable theory. Now, why is that? It is simple because it conveniently identifies a single basis that will account for all actions. And what is that basis? The interest of a person. So if you see someone doing a particular action, say running, doing jogging, or how about even the commonly perceived as negative things such as stealing or hurting other people, psychological egoism, that all of those actions is actually accounted by the interest or the ego of a person. Ganun siya kasimple, no? And also, the theory is plausible. It is plausible because it is unclear ng motivation behind those actions, and that is the interest of a person, right? The self-interest of a person could well be the very motivation behind an individual's seemingly other-directed actions. So even if you say or we see that a person may ginagawa siyang isang bagay na pwede namang motivated by other reasons, hindi man de-deny or it's not easily, we cannot easily deny that an action can actually be motivated by self-interest. There. And the theory is also irrefutable or hindi mo siya basta, you call this? Hindi siya madaling kontrahin. Kasi every time that you use the ego or the self as the reason behind the action of a person, it's always very difficult to counter-argue. No? So pag sinabi natin, for example, na, yan, nag-cheat yan kasi, syempre, yun yung interest niya, yun yung self-interest niya. Kung i-analyze natin yung statement na yun, o yung reasoning na yun, di ba ang hirap niyang kontrahin? Kasi, cheating is actually beneficial to the person. Right? Because cheating might help the person to pass. There. So, yun. Yun yung mga evaluations that can be said about this theory. However, even if psychological egoism is simple, plausible, and irrefutable, we arrive at the question on whether we shall accept this theory as true, as well as do we accept it, or do we accept the consequences of this theory? Okay? Because even if we recognize that all actions are driven by self-interest, do we accept it as it is? And do we always accept yung what follows after that? Kasi, you know, it is not always as simple as that. Whatever a person does might not be as simple as, I'm doing it because it's what I want. It is in accordance to my self-interest. Now, say for example, copying from your classmate or cheating. The simple act of cheating is out of self-interest is actually very questionable na. Kasi say for example, these two persons right here, ano? When you justify yourself as, or yourself as, yourself cheating out of your self-interest, it somehow discounts naman yung hard work ng ibang tao who studied so long for a particular exam because what they wanted also was to pass. Now, looking at these two people, they had the same interest, diba? That is to pass the exam. However, they did it in different ways. The other one studied, the other one chose to cheat. Now, if psychological egoism was true, then it would say na pareho silang tama. Pareho silang, they did it out of their self-interest. So, in a way, they're equal. When we think about it from a rational person's point of view, well, we'd say that the person who studied for the exam is actually better kasi he worked hard for it rather than the person who cheated there. So, the argument or the idea of psychological egoism might not be as simple as that. Now, another example, domestic abuse. If we try to rationalize the action of hitting a partner within a marriage based on psychological egoism, then we'd say that, the guy, the husband, hit the wife because it's in his interest. Like, nasa-satisfy siya pag nagagawa niya yun. However, we cannot discount the fact that the interest of the husband or the partner who hits the other partner in a marriage or in a relationship may not coincide with the interest of the other kasi merong nasasaktan. Okay. And in another example, stealing, no? You steal because it is in your interest. Gusto mo yung bagay na yun na ninakaw mo or kailangan mo. Pero how about yung pinagnakawan mo, no? You stealing from them is not in their interest as well. So, the argument then against psychological egoism is that just because it is not, or just because it is irrefutable, we do not just accept it as it is. Because even though actions are driven by self-interest, it might not be as simple as that. Okay? Now, we look at this, another argument. Say, for example, there are two women who had same amount of money. Now, one of them chose to use that money to donate to charity, to help other people, while another woman chose it to go shopping, chose to use it to go shopping for herself. Now, psychological egoism says that these two women acted out of their self-interest. And so it implies that these two women are of equal moral worth, na pareho naman sila. Kasi yung motivation nila behind what they did was self-interest, therefore, they are in a way equal. But when we think about it, the general perception or the general judgment upon these two women would be, mas mabait itong babaeng nag-donate. Kasi she did it to help other people. Whereas yung isa, wala siyang ibang tinulungan kundi yung sarili niya. Okay? There. So that is for psychological egoism. Now we try to look naman into ethical egoism. So ethical egoism, on the other hand, says that we should make our own ends, or that is the what ought to be done, and our own interests should be the single overriding concern behind every action, and that we should do something if it ultimately benefits us. Now, ethical egoism is also centered on the individual or on the self, no? So it is centered on the idea that a person should prioritize himself or herself. Now, why is that? The reason is because the world is very competitive. So if you don't prioritize yourself or yourself, then you might be left behind, or may iwan ka, or other people might take advantage of you. So that is the reason behind that. And ethical egoism is saying that we should not allow other concerns, such as the welfare of others, to detract you from the pursuit of pursuing or prioritizing yourself. And that each person ought to pursue his or her own self-interest exclusively, because self-interest accounts for all of the obligation of a person. Yan. So, isa-isahin natin yung mga arguments ng ethical egoism. So, sinasabi ng ethical egoism na you should pursue your interest. Now, by pursuing your interest, we do not mean that you should abandon ultimately the interest of others, because sometimes the helping others will coincide with your self-interest. So, the reason behind helping others should be to promote your self-interest, sabi ng ethical egoism. So if you choose to help others, you should make sure that it is to your benefit. Okay? Now, what does that mean? If you're going to help others, you should make sure that it is going to give you something in return, something beneficial. So say, for example, donating to the relief efforts or to charity. If you're going to do that, ano ba? Ano ba yung mga possible na, what do we call this? Possible na benefit sa'yo if you're going to help others? Probably to make you look good in the public eye. Or if you're going to post your good deeds in the social media, it is for you to gain a lot of likes or a big following, no? So if you're going to help others, then it should be to your interest. Okay. So if you're going to justify your action of helping others according to ethical egoism, it should be that you do it because you help others because it is to your interest. There. So that's one point of ethical egoism. The second point is that if you're going to do something, you should think of its long-term benefit to you. Its long-term na effect sa'yo. A person ought to do what is in his or her own interest over the long run. So, do not be confused, no? With the example that I'm going to show you here. For alcoholism or excessive intake of alcohol. So, we might say that taking alcohol is a good thing kasi, or it is at your interest kasi when you drink alcohol, you forget all of your problems, you get relaxed, or you are able to say the things that you cannot say when you're not drunk, or you're able to express yourself freely. Ganyan, you gain freedom when you drink alcohol. Yun yung mga probable na benefits ng action na ito. However, according to ethical egoism, if you think in the long run, the excessive intake of alcohol can lead to liver cirrhosis, kidney failure, damage to the brain, chronic heart failure. Now, considering that then, you should not go or take alcohol in excess kasi it is going to destroy your internal organs later on. So, what should you do according to ethical egoism? You should not drink alcohol or you should not smoke kasi smoking can have the same effect to your organs. Okay. Another example, studying or getting a degree, just like what you're doing right now. Why should you do this? In the long run kasi, whether you pursue a career in the workplace or in the business field, if you choose to do so, obtaining a degree is very beneficial because knowledge is power, as they say. Now, whether or not you pursue a career in the workplace or you do business, if you have plans for that, without a degree or without knowledge on the field that you are taking or the field that you choose to take, you won't be able to say for example, come up with good decisions or good solutions to problems that is backed by scientific knowledge, which you can learn in school. Kaya the advice for us young people, especially for you who are still pursuing your education, is to finish your studies kasi anumang career ang piliin nyo in the future, kakailanganin ninyo. Not only the degree, but also the knowledge that you will be able to gain from your education. Okay, so kahit na sabihin natin that there are people who succeeded even if they did not go to school, those are just a few of the people who actually ventured into that path, no? Hindi naman lahat ng pinili na mag-drop out of school actually succeeded. There are some who succeeded, but there are also many who did not. So in order to increase your chances of succeeding in the future or pursuing a good career in the future, we are encouraged to go to school and finish our studies. Okay, so there, if you try to think about those things that are beneficial in the long run, ito yung mga i-prescribe ng ethical egoism na gawin natin. So all actions should be are self-driven or are motivated by self-interest. However, we should also think of the long-term effect that it has to us personally and that will serve our interests as well. There. So we look into the arguments that support ethical egoism. The first of which is altruism is self-defeating, or when we say altruism, just a brief review, helping other people or being good to other people. Sabi ng ethical egoism that it is self-defeating or it diminishes your personal interest. Now, why is that? So according to this argument, everyone is aware of his or her wants and needs. Therefore, we ought to do whatever will best promote everyone's interest. Each of us is uniquely placed to pursue those wants and needs effectively. At the same time, we understand other people only imperfectly. So kung merong mas pinaka nakakaintindi sa kung anong gusto niya sa buhay, it is the individual. And we are not well placed to advance the interest of other people. So if we try to be good to others, if we try to be our brother's keeper, we will or we might not do a good job, and we might do more harm than good. So it is best to pursue your interest. And then the second is looking out for others is an offensive intrusion into other people's privacy. Therefore, the best way to promote everyone's interests is for us to pursue our own interests exclusively. I think I don't have to explain this further. And then the third is that making other people the object of charity is degrading. Kasi sometimes, diba, helping other people can actually be translated in this way. Therefore, it's best to pursue our own interests exclusively. Kasi according to this argument, making the people the object of our charity robs them of their dignity and self-respect. And in effect, it says to them that they are not competent enough to care for themselves or to try to achieve what they also want in or need in life. And in addition, such action is self-fulfilling. Those who are helped cease to be self-reliant and become passively dependent on others. That is why daw yung mga tao na nakaka-receive ng charity are often resentful rather than appreciative. So in each case, the policy of looking out for others is said to be self-defeating. You are not benefiting yourself by helping others. So you should not do it according to this argument, because doing these things, helping others, I should say, is self-defeating. It is not in accordance to your self-interest in the long run. So you should not do it. Okay? Well, it sounds plausible naman if you look at this explanations, no? Now, the other argument supporting ethical egoism is that it can actually coincide with common sense morality. Now, what is common sense morality? This is what we know as yung mga normal na alam ng lahat ng tao. Say for example, yung ba yung mga example ng common sense morality? Yung mga things such as you should not hurt other people, diba? that is like known to all of the people in the world, that it is not good to hurt others. You should be good to others at the minimum. Ganon. So, yun yung mga common sense morality. You should not kill. There, yung mga ganon. So, sometimes daw ethical egoism can be equated to common sense morality. So, when this happens, you should try to strike a balance between your interest and the interest of other people. Okay, now we try to look at some supporting arguments to this as well. So, or supporting statements, I should say. We try to look at the duty not to harm others. So, sinasabi ng duty ng argument na ito that if we do things that harm other people won't mind harming us as well. So if we harm other people, then we might not gain any friends, or we will be despised. In effect, pag mangailangan tayo in the future, no one will be there to help us. So what is in our best interest? We do not harm others. Okay. Therefore, we have the duty not to harm others for this reason. Okay. And then the next is we also have the duty not to lie. Because if we lie to other people, we will suffer all the ill effects of a bad reputation. People will not trust us, and people might avoid or will avoid doing business with us. They will avoid accompanying us kasi they know that we will lie to them. Therefore, we benefit from being truthful. Therefore, we should always tell the truth to others. Okay? Yun yung sinasabi ng ethical egoism dito. Then the third is that we have the duty to keep our promises. We need to be able to rely on others to keep their word, but we can hardly expect them to do that if we do not keep our promises to them. Kaya pag may sinabi ka, kailangan mong gawin in order to gain the trust of other people. Because if you do not do what you say, you will lose the trust of other people. And so, hindi siya magiging beneficial sa'yo. It is to our own advantage to enter into mutually beneficial agreements with other people. Kasi you just imagine living in a place or living in an environment where there is distrust between and among people. Diba, ang hirap kasi hindi mo alam kung sino ang lalapitan mo when you need something, sino ang pagsasabihan mo ng mga bagay na kailangan mong i-release there. So, if you're going to promise something, you should do it now. Because it is only in that way that you're able to gain the trust of others. And by gaining the trust of others, they also trust you. Yan. So, these are the different duties that a person should do, or a person should pursue according to ethical egoism. And at the same time kasi, these duties coincide with the interests of other people. So in this sense, or with these exemptions, you should help other people because, or work with other people, because helping and or working with other people coincides with your self-interest. So there, ethical egoism is not centered on pursuing your interest, but it can also coincide with pursuing the interest of others as long as it will benefit you. Okay. So, nakita natin yung mga arguments supporting ethical egoism. This time, we try to look into its criticisms or the arguments against it. So, the first is that ethical egoism cannot explain why you shouldn't do a horrible thing, such that some of our moral obligations cannot be derived from self-interest. Ethical egoism does not prove as much as it needs to, because it shows only that it is usually to one's advantage to tell the truth, to keep one's promises, and to avoid harming others. But what if a situation arises in which you could profit from doing something horrible? Say, for example, it is to your interest to kill another person. Now, ethical egoism will not tell you that you shouldn't do that because that is obviously wrong. In fact, ethical egoism might prescribe you killing another person. Now, knowing that that is obviously wrong, why? No? The question is, ethical egoism cannot account for that wrongdoing. Because even if killing another person is to your interest, it is not to the interest of others as well. And that is obviously wrong. It is in, even in common sense morality, hindi siya nagko-coincide. So, some of our moral obligations cannot be derived from self-interest. There. While ethical egoism can explain why we do some things that is in accordance to our self-interest, it cannot account for why we should not do other things that are extremely harmful for other people. Okay, and then the second criticism to this is that it does not have a strong argument to support how helping others is to one's self-interest. So, for example, yung pagbibigay sa charity, ethical egoism says that a person gives to charity because it is to his or her self-interest in the long run. Kasi pag nagbigay siya sa charity, napapagandaan kanyang image sa public, and or pag yung taong yun ay politiko or may plano na maging politiko, makakatulong yun sa kanyang future endeavor. However, hindi lang naman yon ang mga rason kung bakit tumutulong just sa charity ang ibang tao. So for example, paano pag nag-donate siya kasi gusto niya talagang mag-donate, mahal niya yung mga tao na nangangailangan. What if genuine naman talaga na gusto niyang tumulong or out of love na ginawa niya yon, no? Dinidiscount ng ethical egoism yung ganon na reasoning. Kasi para sa ethical egoism, ang rason lang kung bakit pinupursue ng isang tao ang mga bagay na ginagawa niya is out of self-interest. Hindi lang naman yon ang rason kung bakit ginagawa natin ang mga bagay na pinupursue natin. So, for example, what if you try to beautify yourself? Say, nag-aayos ka na palagi, or you're trying to go on a diet, you're trying to be fit. Ethical egoism would say that, you're doing it because it is to your self-interest kasi in the long run, gusto mong maging i-project yung sarili mo na mas maganda in the future, which is good naman. or you try to be fit and healthy, which is good naman for you in the long run. However, the real reason you're doing it is because you're conscious of what other people tell you, or you're trying to be beautiful enough or good enough for your partner or your boyfriend or your girlfriend, or you're trying to find your special someone by being beautiful. Paano kung yun naman talaga ang motivation mo? Now, ethical egoism is discounting all of those other reasons or those other interests, which is in fact existing in the real world. No? So there, those are the criticisms against ethical egoism. So in order to be ethical then, what is the right thing to do? Para mapag-coincide natin ang egoism, either that be psychological or ethical, and subjectivism, which we have discussed earlier. Now, the best thing that we can do is to be discerning, no? To try to weigh things out, to be rational as well as not only emotional about the things that we do or about the things that we experience, about the things that we pursue. And we try to do what is in the best interest of everyone, not only yourself and not only other people, but you strike a balance between the two. And we try to balance din yung reasoning natin when it comes to pursuing things na hindi lang dapat yung interest mo, hindi lang yung interest ng ibang tao, but where do your interests meet? And from there, we might be able to do what is best, what is ethical, what is moral. Okay? So the lesson for this unit or for this module is that you do not just pursue your own interest, but you also consider the interest of other people. So it discourages us from being selfish, pursuing only what you think is best for you, doing only what is best for you, but considering what is also good for others. So it might not mean the best for you, but at least it benefits all of the people around you, hindi lang ikaw. Okay, so what follows here are the summary of the 3 senses of the self, or yung discuss natin for this particular module: subjectivism, psychological egoism, and ethical egoism. I'll leave it up to you to read the notes that I have given. Anyway, I think these are very easy to understand naman. So if you have questions na lang out of these notes or out of the discussion, I will be, or you just i-feedback nyo lang doon sa ating discussion board. And there, just to end this discussion, this is the answer to the pre-test that I have given you earlier. Letter A is psychological egoism, and letter B is ethical egoism. So that's all for this discussion class. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you have learned something more than just the concepts. I hope na meron kayong na-pick up which you can apply in your everyday decision making. So all the best to you, and I will be seeing you after a week. God bless.